Barb Sampson, again, the queen of the engineer for us, coordinates all of that. And so your counselor will help guide you through where you should be interviewing. And then in addition to that, the alumni interview often comes into play after you've actually already submitted your application. So just this week, we've had a flurry of alumni interviews on campus for seniors. So there is timing that goes into that, and don't panic because you are all here in Delaware. So oftentimes it's the Delaware rep from alumni network that will come here and actually do the interviews right here on campus. So we have that all mapped out, and we'll walk each of you through that.
Hi, this is similar to the question about the gap year. But I was wondering about study abroad programs, semester abroad programs, what type of programs are offered. Do those programs offer financial aid, or is the tuition or the expense for that included in that tuition?
So Bowdoin offers one study abroad program. It's in Sri Lanka. There are about 40 students every year who want to go to Sri Lanka. But we have 125 approved programs where your credit transfers seamlessly. We have, in any given graduating class, 70 to 75% of people who have had a study abroad experience. Your financial aid goes with you on these programs, which is really nice. And it's something that's really institutionally supported. It's supported by every department. You can go abroad as easily as a French major as you can as a chemistry major. Some of that will maybe be a little more tailored to your interests if you're a chemistry major than a French major. But it's, I mean, with 125 programs, there are a lot of options to choose from. If the one of those 125 programs doesn't interest you, it's a one-page application to get a new program approved. So it's really about finding what you want out of study abroad and making it happen, and you get the institutional support to do so. I don't know if you guys have similar.
Yeah, I think it's all similar. There's study abroad programs in the summer for students that can't do an entire semester, and same thing. Your financial aid goes for you. It's an amazing opportunity to take advantage of. So it's something I would personally encourage everyone.
One thing I'll encourage you to do for going to study abroad is if you're pursuing like a pre-med track or something like that, you want to begin that study abroad conversation early because it's feasible to study abroad through a pre-med track, but it's not necessarily the conversation you want to begin your junior year. Just to make sure you have the appropriate curriculum through the pre-med track.
And do not assume that financial aid is portable. It is, I'm sure, for each institution represented here today, but that's not true everywhere. So ask the question as to whether or not that's the case. And ask about merit-based aid if you receive a merit scholarship. Ask about need-based aid as well, because maybe that one is and one is not.
Good morning. Quick question. First off, many of the parents are having their children at the St. Andrews School for many different reasons. Knowing that the comparables when you're looking at schools through the admission process, and I think I know the answer to this, and I'm hoping that you can provide the answer. We know that grades do not make up the candidacy only, but we also know that grades do make up the candidacy for a big part of the acceptances. How do you look at a school like St. Andrews that has a pretty competitive and challenging grading system, and how do you weigh the applicant from St. Andrews graduate versus other schools, and do you do that? In other words, our grading system, how our kids' GPAs and percentages come out of the school year.
Absolutely, and that's a reason why programs like this are amazing, because we can come here and learn about all those things. But each school also sends us a high school profile when we're looking at applications, so we can start to look at the student in the context of their school. So I can't look at St. Andrews students in the same way that I can at students that are at public school down the road. Every single curriculum is completely different. So when I'm looking at a St. Andrews student, I'm looking at them in the way that they are instructed, the way that they are graded. What they have available to them is always quite different as well. So it's always in the context of that school, which is why so many of us spend so much time visiting so many different schools.
So how much does where you're from matter? So like, do you guys look at kids from like the Caribbean or kids from the United States? When you look at applications?
part of your question, at least in our process, and I suspect most, we read, so students who apply who are U.S. citizens and students who apply as international students are not necessarily read completely separately, especially if you're an international student at a school in the U.S. Your reading process will be the same, but there can often be different requirements. Colleges have different requirements for international students, and certainly that's the case for us.
I touched on this a little bit last night with a young man at my dinner table. Because he indicated he's lived here. I see him right in front of me. He's lived here since he was young, but his family was unsure of whether or not the United States was going to be home long term, so chose not to pursue citizenship. We are all hoping to bring a diverse class into our community each year. Geography is a small part of that, but it is diversity. It's difficult to define diversity today, I think. We're more looking for diversity of thought, diversity of background and life experiences, all in hopes of bringing together a strong community of learners who can learn from one another in the classroom and at 2 a.m. on dorm as well. So we're not all limiting ourselves to the traditional definition of diversity, but we do love students from the Dakotas.
We have time for one more question. I know you have one.
When students go to visit colleges, what sorts of questions should we be asking?
What sort of questions should students be asking and parents not be asking, or asking on campus visits?
I think you should ask if students there are happy. I think you want to go to a place where students are really happy to be there. And you want to ask why they're happy and what they're doing and what they're involved in. But you want to know that you're at a place where people really feel good. And I think that gets back to sort of all of what we've been talking about all along. And you want to find the place that's right for you. And fit is a really important component of your college search. So finding a place where you feel like you step foot on this campus and yeah, you already belong here, that's important. But asking people why they're happy and what they're doing and making sure that those interests coincide with yours, those are important things to ask.
Just very quick, I would ask the same question of the faculty members and staff members you meet. Probably one of the biggest factors anywhere in life is morale. The people love working where they're working. That will have a powerful impact on your experience as a student, to be going to a school with people who work there, from the dining halls to the library, to the classroom, to the central administration. Love what they're doing and feel proud.
I feel like I just always like to answer this question kind of in the reverse, what not to ask. For me, I always like to see that the students done a little bit of research, especially the kind of basics if you're going to visit the school. So, maybe not asking, do you have neuroscience as a major? Because that's something that's pretty easy to look up, and so, it kind of shows the admission officer that, okay, you haven't really even flipped through our basic introduction to the school. Now, maybe you can ask some specifics like, a specific class that you've read about, with neuroscience. You can ask, do we know anybody who took that class? Or if the admission officer is an alum, then you could ask, what was your favorite class at Bates or something like that. But it really is nice to do a tiny bit of research too. And so maybe you're asking about the outing club and the specifics of what they do instead of just, do you have an outing club? So I think that's always nice. And then I did tell Ms. Fritz that I was going to mention one thing about college fairs, if this question kind of came up. We kind of get some generic questions, such as, how is your English program? And so That's I feel like a pretty common question, and or how is your history department? And down the road, we're all saying, it's great, I've never heard somebody say, ooh, well, yeah, it's just horrible, don't come here, because, we don't know how to write or something like that. And so, it's kind of funny when a student goes to each table at a college fair, kind of going down the row and asks that same question, because we're all giving the exact same answer. So maybe you want to get a little bit deeper there too, and really think about what is it that I want to know after talking to a couple of reps at a college fair. What is it that you actually want to know about the school? Maybe if it's study abroad, some specifics with it. How many programs we offer, the financial aid piece, does that go with it? So getting a little bit deeper versus just, how is such and such in different departments.
And I just want to end real quickly with a really important part of that question is what questions should the students be asking while they're at college campus. And this is by no means to diminish the role that parents play in that college visit, but students take control of that experience. You are the ones that are looking at these schools. You are the ones that are trying to find the fit. So come up with some questions before you go, and don't kind of stand there with your parents and let them ask the questions for you. Kind of take ownership of that process and make sure that you're the ones that are asking the important questions for you. That's the most important.
I think once you've gotten all once you've been admitted to some wonderful schools and you're trying to make decisions, I think ultimately what you're trying to figure out is the cultural climate, because you've already vetted have the appropriate majors. I'm going to go out on a limb and say all of our schools have very qualified faculty. So at this point, you're trying to define the cultural climate. You know what a great question to ask? Hey, can I have lunch in the dining hall today on a Tuesday at noon? Because you don't find the cultural in a class. You don't find the culture in meeting with a coach. The dining hall at lunch is the place where everybody is going. And you can see who they're sitting with and what they're wearing. And the athletes integrated with everybody else. And are the students who represent a different ethnic group, are they with everybody? That is the type of conversation. Once you've been admitted, once you've vetted everything else, the cultural climate is going to be ultimately, I think, the best way to make a decision. So I think asking students, don't ask me, it doesn't matter what I think about the cultural climate. Ask the students. Walk in the dining hall and ask the students, what's the cultural climate like? Because those people are on the payroll, they're not invested in you coming to the college. So those are the people to ask.
Okay. Thank you, everybody. That was great. Thank you. Retreat to your committee rooms. And then this is where I need everyone's really great listening ears on.